why don't we start with a question for the chat? Name an example of a piece of art, whether it's a famous piece of art or something you commissioned or have drawn yourself even. Give an example of a piece of art that really moved you emotionally. So yeah, while you guys are thinking about that, a nice piece that emotionally moved you, I'll provide an example of my own. This I saw at a recent gallery. It is simply titled Old Dog by the artist Rick Bartlow, Old Dog 2015. And I mean, you know, as a person with a couple of old dogs myself, I don't know. I just really like this painting a lot. Yeah, exactly, Steven. Aw, old dog. But, you know, he's still kicking, right? Like, the dog's really weird looking, but that's, like, part of the charm of having an old dog, is they're kind of weird looking. I can remember being moved by a self-portrait of Vincent van Gogh at the Art Institute. Yeah, alright. Well, I could imagine the in-person experience of it made it more impactful. Like, you're actually there in person seeing this, like, famous painting from a famous artist. That's, like, you know, historically important. Being face to face, looking into his face. And I remember seeing the individual brushstrokes and thinking about how he did each one of those very intentionally. Yeah, right, because this is like pointillism, I think. Also, I was listening to the song Vincent by Don McLean. Okay, all right. Let's change our first point to admiration of skill. That'll be our very first point. Because, I mean, yeah, sometimes seeing something that's just really well done and well executed, and just like imagining the amount of time it must have taken to do that, and like, you know, the sheer discipline it takes to make art, that in itself is emotionally like really resonant. Let's look at the Old Dog painting again. Again, the artist here is Rick Bartlow. This was a piece that emotionally resonated with me because of my own 2 old dogs that I own. It's not an accurate depiction of a dog. Like, you know, if you want to judge it based on anatomy alone, like, yeah, this isn't how a dog anatomically looks, but that doesn't matter. The almost abstractness of how this dog looks really adds to that, like, broken down old dog painting effect, right? We can categorize that as direct connection. I feel like this is the most common way people end up relating to a thing, is that they can directly relate to it in some way, right? Like, you have all these stories of heroes with their struggles, and some of our favorite characters in media are characters that share our similar struggles, right? You know, one of my favorite movies is Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse specifically, just because I really identify with the themes of kind of like living up to who you want to be, living up to kind of this responsibility that's almost thrust upon you, right? So, you know, having that direct connection, that's an easy way to get someone to emotionally resonate with your art, but that's also incredibly subjective. I think my example would be The 2,000-Yard Stare by Thomas Lee. It's haunting and conveys how the horrors of war can affect a human. Oh, this is literally just the meme of the soldier staring at the camera. Yeah, the one that's used for all the memes and stuff. But let's separate it from its memed culture for a little bit. So yeah, you have war going on in the background. You have planes in the air that I'm assuming just passed by after bombing this station, right? You have this soldier almost laying down in defeat, trying to survive this tragedy. The freaking burned down forest with, you know, it's leaving behind nothing but like sticks and twigs, right? Because war is also extremely destructive to nature. War is essentially destructive to all things, including nature, including humanity, right? It's breaking down both this guy, both the soldiers, both nature, and, I mean, not to take away from our focus here, but there's a reason why this became a meme, right? Because it's just such a strong expression that gives off so much like that kind of look of dissociation of, this guy kind of separating himself from this tragedy, but still like the despair of it is still creeping in, right? That 2,000-yard stare, as the title of this painting indicates, right? He's just trying his best to separate himself from it, but yeah, that dead look in his eyes. Me when the mildest thing happens, my pain threshold became very low. Yeah, and like, that's what makes kind of the memes, that's what creates the humor in them, right? Is that this is a thing depicting one of the most horrific events you could possibly witness, the tragedy of war, and you're just kind of like juxtaposing that. Oh, keep that word in mind today. You're juxtaposing that with, like, let's say, a mild problem, like how Hakan said, right? Where it's like, hey, here's the worst thing imaginable, and then here's like something most people experience in their everyday life and get over pretty quickly. When you combine those two together, you get a joke, right? But yeah, an hour ago, one of my friends sent it after I asked how his final went. Yeah, right? It's a perfect image that conveys like a lot of emotion. It's so emotionally resonant that people are using it within their own lives. When they're also just experiencing something like really just difficult, they'll use this image, which, I mean, again, it's kind of that direct connection as well. Also, I didn't spell direct right. Also, I kind of pick up on him looking away from the carnage as well. Like, even when you take your eyes off of it, the stare doesn't go away. Yeah. Like, again, it's that trying to distance himself from the tragedy, but like, no matter what, like the despair and tragedy of it, it's still just gonna creep in no matter what. See how much we're able to analyze these paintings? Because, I mean, these are just the base topic. This is the top. This is the top of the iceberg. This is merely the top of the iceberg, let's say, right? Is that how a freaking iceberg looks? I don't know. Sometimes it's just the sheer admiration of skill. Sometimes it's just that direct connection of people know war is tragic, so just depicting war in itself, that's gonna bring out emotion in people. But again, how do you go deeper beyond just like, oh, this is sad because it's depicting a sad thing, right? Let's go deeper than just that. And let's bring you back to high school literature. Let's talk about literary devices. Now, who in chat can name some literary devices that they're familiar with? I'll start you off with one. I'll start you off with simile/metaphor, because they're kind of the same thing. In media res, in the middle of things, when you start a story in the middle of a fight or something, then flashback to what led to those events. Yep, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got here. Right, starting something. Yeah, I think that can apply to like various things. Yeah, I bet you're wondering how I got here is the key phrase to the media res as a trope / device. Yeah. Not even just in the middle of things. It's like showing an event directly before it happens, showing an event directly after it happens, and showing an event in the middle of things happening, right? So we got simile, metaphor, in media res, foreshadowing. Oh, personification, that's a classic one. Okay, yeah, and then there's just like a whole bunch of things, right? Etc. There's just so many literary devices. Okay. So let's go through each of these, just these base examples one by one, right? So a simile and a metaphor. This is probably the first thing you learn about poetry or whatever. It's when you take a subject and you directly compare it to something seemingly unrelated, but you're just using it as a kind of alternate explanation for a thing, right? So basically, let's say instead of saying her hair flowed along the back of her shoulders, you say something like, her hair flowed down her shoulders like a waterfall cascading over a cliff. That is a simile. A simile is specifically when you say like or as. Her eyes are as dark as the night. That's another example. My mama always said life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. another classic example. If you don't use like or as, that's also the same thing, but that's called a metaphor, right? If instead you said, life is a box of chocolates, you never know what you're gonna get. Her hair was a waterfall flowing down the back of her shoulders, cascading like it's flowing over cliffs, right? That runner was lightning fast. Exactly. That's also kind of a hyperbole as well. Hyperbole, that's like, you know, an over-exaggeration of things, where let's say you go to the store and you come back and it's like, I had to pay $1 million for that carton of eggs. Who knows, maybe that is in our close future, not so far future anyway. All right, let's go back to the in media res. So in media res, like Cerisi was saying, that's basically where you start in the middle of an event happening. You know, let's say the middle of a fight, right? Where you're depicting these people already fighting each other, already throwing punches, and it's just this really, like a comic book, right? You're already on the panel where they're punching each other and getting flung back, right? So that's another method of thinking about, okay, so you have like a subject you want to depict. At what point do you want to depict it? Do you want to depict it happening right in the middle? So again, these two people fighting, right in the middle of that would be them punching each other. Other options, you can think about depicting the same events. Think about how it changes if you depict it at the beginning of said fight, or if you depict it like right after the fight, right? So let's say if you want to do a drawing of some people like right before they start fighting, think about that famous JoJo meme, right? This one here. This is kind of the moments right before the fight, right? It takes this really dynamic angle of them like approaching each other, charging up. You know, I don't know what the exclamations here say, but you know, this is right before they're about to fight each other. So it's like holding this tension of, oh God, what's gonna happen next, right? That's an example of that. You could also try to depict it right after the fight as well. So you could do a drawing that takes place right after the events of someone getting beat up and they're just like on the floor, keeled over, right? Maybe it takes place in a hospital room even, because they had to get rushed to the hospital. And maybe the other fighter is now feeling like guilty and they're just staring at their bloody hands like, oh my God, what did I just do? I just made that up on the spot. See how thinking about these different situations at different points in time can create its own narrative in itself? I think the default for a fight, right, depicting a fight happening, is thinking of it like in the fight itself, you know, the people punching each other and, you know, right in the middle of the high tenseness. Whereas starting it right before the fight starts, that's a great way to kind of show the tension building up to the fight, and then depicting it at the end of the fight, that's like, oh God, now you can showcase the consequences of this event happening. That's also an incredibly impactful thing. So see how much the message changes of our drawing, how many different meanings we can get out of this one subject matter just by changing the point at which we're viewing this event from, right? Foreshadowing, I think, is slightly different. Foreshadowing is more so, think Chekhov's gun. It's basically an element that foreshadows a future event that will happen. Foreshadowing would be more so, what is a good... Foreshadowing is a literary device used... What's the meme? Alright, let's take this bit of foreshadowing from my comic. Ooh! Basically... Morgan here, my character, she's reading a book that's talking about what the cause of this disease going around is, but she doesn't get to finish reading it. She gets interrupted, and then as she's walking away, we, the audience, sees, oh, the fungus, best survives in wet conditions, so the most common means of infection is through water contamination. Now that's foreshadowing for the events later in the book, or in this chapter, in this comic chapter, where she goes and she drinks some infected water because she doesn't know about the disease being spread through water contamination. And so now we see the payoff of the foreshadowing of her getting infected through water contamination, just like the book was describing earlier in the chapter. But, you know, this is also an example of dramatic irony because we, the audience, sees that she's getting infected with disease, but she herself does not realize that. So, dramatic irony, foreshadowing, all of that. You can read my comic at psychomanatee.com, by the way. I don't know that it'd be dramatic irony there. Let me look this up to confirm. Dramatic irony is a plot device used in literature in which the audience is aware of information that the characters are not aware of. Yeah. That is dramatic irony, is specifically, it's just information that the audience knows, the character doesn't know, right? Personification, right? That is when you apply human characteristics to a non-human thing. So take this little rubber duck. I got a little rubber duck here and I got a problem with it. And I'm like, oh, my little rubber duck, you're the only guy who ever listens to me. The brave little toaster. Yeah, person. Oh, he squeaks. Oh my god, squeaky. Yeah, personification. Yeah, the entire concept of furries. Yeah, that's like taking animals and applying human characteristics to them. That is the entire basis of furryism, is based in personification. It can also be other examples. Let me take my duck example, where I'm like, oh, you're the only one who ever listens to me, little duck. You're a great listener, right? I'm applying this kind of human characteristic of being a good listener to something that has really no choice but to listen, but he's also not literally listening. I'm just speaking into this void of a rubber duck. Well, he could respond, I guess. He could respond with little squeaks. Isn't that right, little duck? But yeah, you know, it's your companion cube. The companion cube from Portal, yeah. The automaton could count as an example of personification for a musical instrument. Here's another thing about personification, is you don't need to physically give it human human traits. You can personify a violin. Like, there are people I know who name their instruments with, like, you know, this is my violin, Gerald here. He is my best friend and we've been through so much together. But, you know, it's still just like a regular violin, but you're just applying kind of human characteristics to it with, like, yeah, saying boats are always a she. Yeah, saying cars are also a she. Basically, any vehicle is always a she. I think the other, like, you know, most famous example, right, is just the entire concept of, like, Mother Nature. Like, we take the concept of nature and, like, give it this really maternal, motherly, feminine qualities to it, you know, and like, you know, a lot of depictions depicted as a literal human, when, you know, in reality it's just like grass and trees and stuff. Mommy nature. Dak, you're gay, shut up. Here's a question for the chat here. Personification, why might that be an effective literary device to use for being emotionally poignant in your art? I can only think of the companion cube from Portal. Alright, well, I guess, what is the narrative point of the companion cube in Portal then? What makes the companion cube... What makes the player get attached to the companion cube? If they're not a sociopath, at least. Apparently, I missed it because I throw away the companion cube too quickly. You monster. Like I said, if you're not a sociopath... So the companion cube is personified by, I believe GLaDOS personifies the cube. It's like given to you as this, I mean, it's titled the companion cube, right? Like it's literally named the companion cube. It's using the name companion as a descriptor for it so that you feel it's more humanoid than it really is. It's your companion, it's your sidekick, it's like your little pet or something, right? Yeah, it's personified by how it's referred to and how you constantly use it to help you progress. Exactly. So you get attached to it because you're like, wow, this is a nice, helpful thing that I have in my life. And it's my companion. How nice. Getting the player to emotionally attach to it as like this figure, this thing actively helping you with your task, right? It makes it all the more tragic when you're tasked to throw it away in a fire.
Friend, can we have some final words for companion cube, please? I've grown as attached to this cube as fast as I grew attached to Control V and Control C today. I want to do
which is what makes that scene incredibly funny as well. Because again, ultimately, it's just a cube. It doesn't have any emotions, but you've grown so attached to it. All of those elements together creates a really funny moment in the game of Portal where you're conflicted about throwing away this non-object or this object that you've deemed as your friend. Imagery. This is, you know, mainly a thing for poems, right? Or just writing in general. Basically, again, imagery is just the descriptions of scenery, like, that you're trying to convey emotions for. So, like, again, let's say in a story, it's a really, like, romantic moment between two people, and so you describe the sunset next to them setting alongside the horizon, how it creates this beautiful purple and orange sky color that mixes together as... That's how you do it in a writing. How you do it with drawing, painting, etc. is, I mean, yeah, you just include that element in the first place. But let's say, you know, let's take the topic now of a romantic scene, right? The layperson might just think, oh, a romantic scene. Let me just draw two people kissing each other, right? That would be kind of the most straightforward approach to drawing out a romantic scene. But if you think about adding more imagery, that may prompt you to then think about, oh, you know, to make this more romantic, let's add imagery of that sunset I described. Let's add imagery of maybe some, like, doves flying by, right? Oh, turtle doves, right? That's both romantic and just some... It's both a metaphor, because turtle doves, they're like the romance thing, right? Both a metaphor and, again, more imagery to kind of, like, add to that feeling of romance and, you know, the lighting itself, right? If you have, like, these nice... beautiful purples and oranges just kind of mixing together with each other. That in itself is imagery that adds to that romantic atmosphere, romantic feeling that you're conveying in this drawing. Juxtaposition. Now, can anyone define juxtaposition for me? This is my personal favorite one. I love juxtaposition. Ever since I learned the word. The best of times, it was the worst of times. Yes, that is, yeah, probably one of the most classic examples. That's A Tale of Two Cities, right? Yeah, I mean, the entire story of A Tale of Two Cities, it's literally, the entire book is about the juxtaposition of the rich, wealthy city and then the poor, falling apart city. And I've never read the book, so I don't know what it is much beyond that, but yes, putting two things together that contrast, juxtapose, yeah. So comparing the society of this rich city and then comparing the society of this poor city to both emphasize, it's used as a point of emphasis as well. To juke someone's position. Hey, say some fly guys trying to juke on your position. What is the literary use of contrasting things with each other? What does that do? Because, I mean, you could just tell the story, going back to A Tale of Two Cities, you could just tell the story of a poor city and leave the rich city out of it. It emphasizes the point of one thing by comparing, contrasting. There you go, Cerisi. It's all about emphasis. Because if you have no point of comparison to fight capitalism, yes. If you have no point of comparison for this poor city, it's like, yeah, this city is so poor, but like, I don't know, maybe that's just how all cities are, right? But then you contrast it with a really rich city that's everyone's all well off and, you know, friggin' free to do whatever they want. When you contrast it with that, it makes the poorer city look more poor, and it makes the richer city look more rich. 'Cause now you have that kind of scale baseline of where they fall next to each other, which helps add to this point of, yeah, this poor city really sucks, huh? And this rich city really, they don't know how good they got it. Again, I never read the book, so I don't know exactly. I'm assuming it's, I'm assuming it's making the point that it sucks that the city is poor and the rich people aren't, like, sharing their support. I'm assuming, but that might just be me projecting. But yes, juxtaposition, remember YouTube, eat the rich, burn down data centers, let's freaking go! Yeah, like I said, I think juxtaposition, that's my personal favorite way of making art. Like, that's like the most common thing I use in all of my art. Skeletons inherently, I think, are a bit scary and stuff, because they're just like, you know, they're the insides of us, and they're gross and nasty, and it makes me shiver. They're so spooky. You see them in caves when people have died in them. And then just making like a skeleton that's like a skeleton gal that's just like, hey, I'm a fashionista and I'm just a cute gal. That's one of my favorite things to do with art, you know? That's like, again, my entire comic, right? I love plague doctors. My comic, which you can read at psychomanatee.com, by the way. I love plague doctors because they're just like, their entire existence is the juxtaposition of things, because they're doctors that are supposed to help you. Like, historically, they were trying to help heal the plague and stuff, but then inadvertently, because people kept dying around them, they became this kind of symbol of death that people just, like, you know, took and started using. So, like, it's these doctors that are symbols of death. I love that. That's my favorite thing ever. I'm gonna make a whole comic about it. Let's go. All right, so why don't we take all of these ideas, right? And let's make a new drawing using these literary devices. Spoiler alert, I already made a sketch for this, and I just want to walk you through my thought process for thinking up the sketch. So, yeah, maybe I'll save this, and then here, I'll just add like a and many more. Let's take this and let's build a drawing off of this now. Simile metaphor. I used this example earlier because I was like, okay, what's the most basic metaphor I can think of right now, or simile I could think of right now? Her hair flowed like a waterfall. But right, I take this simile of like, her hair flowed like a waterfall, right? And so now I'm trying to think, okay, what if instead of drawing flowing hair, I just then literally draw her hair as a waterfall? So that's how it connects to imagery, right? Instead of, you know, drawing the basic hair, flowy hair, I draw it where it is just literally a waterfall, right? So that's how I add some more imagery to it. So now I'm thinking, okay, so I have this like water entity, let's say, right? I have this water entity. I could make it just like a regular watery person, like they're just completely made of water and they're like shy or something, right? So that we'll just say a water entity. So I'm thinking, okay, so like water, it's all emotional and sad and stuff, right? That's what we associate with water, emotions and sadness and vulnerability, this fluidity of emotions. But then I thought, no, that's way too cliche. That's been done. It's been done. But I still took some of the ideas, though. I was thinking of the elements of, emotional. They got the sadness. Maybe they're a little bit shy. And I transferred it to then a thought of like, okay, what if, instead of made of water, made of stone, right? Stone. So we got like tears and rain. So now I'm thinking, okay, so like stone is instead emotionless, which connects to that juxtaposition now. Because now we have both elements of water and stone that, water, stone, emotion, like water represents emotion, stone kind of represents emotionlessness. So having those two elements contrast with each other. And so with these two elements together, then I thought maybe this is also a little cliche, but I thought of like a mountain cliff lady. So that goes into a personification. Let's say, yeah, maybe I'm drawing Mother Nature now. I'm drawing this personification of Mother Nature, who is, stone cold emotionless. Also has like, the flowing water and has all this like, nature elements on it. So like, again, just more juxtaposition where it's a stone emotionless person who's supporting life and having life thrive in the ecosystem that is, her, right? Then the final element is, again, just more juxtaposition. I love juxtaposition so much. Literally, just so much of my art involves juxtaposition, right? Where it's like, okay, so what if emotionless? Basically, yeah. So she's emotionless, but the emotions are starting to break through because she's smiling. Like, her emotions are starting to break through in the form of a smiled crack is like raising along her face here, right? More juxtaposition. See, emotionless, stone, but despite that, she's still showing some kind of emotion, right? So we take all this, we get something like this, right? This is my concept sketch. I drew this in like 10 minutes before stream. I sketched this out. So let's try to finish it and see if we can make it something very emotionally poignant, right? But yeah, again, I don't know if this isn't the most original idea. It's not like Cerisi mentioned Moana, right? I was also thinking, I had in mind the if you ever seen the Pixar short Lava, that's like another kind of basis for this design. Tafiti's hotter sister. Oh, very like Mona Lisa-like right now, I think. The kind of side eye. Let's try to add some like rocks to the side here, perhaps. Maybe I could go for that almost like being taken over by nature sort of thing. Oh, I could add like roots and stuff, kind of like wrapping around her arm. Oh, this could be like the connecting factor, like a big old tree up here. All right, let's start sketching. Or let's start painting. So add like this bend here. We want to add a nice shadowy darkness to the water. Oh, it's almost been 4 hours. I may end this and then just continue it off stream. I am getting eepy.